Okay, I'm gonna call this, Arundel Planning Board to order. Today is September 12th, 2019, it is 7 PM. We're in the MLD Elementary School. We'll start with a roll call.
Marty Kane.
Tom again.
Demore,
Susan Roth.
Rich Canong.
Tad Redwood.
We have before us item number 1, approval of the agenda.
We got somebody else on.
And let the record reflect Jens is not here, Jens Berger. So, on the agenda, we have approval of the agenda, public comment, approval of the minutes from August 22nd, public hearings. We have a public hearing, a citizen petition to amend the Arundel land use ordinance. The next item is a referral to the Board of Selectmen for that citizen petition. We have pending applications, specially designed stables, a major conditional use application. Item number 2 is Raymond Acres, a re-subdivision of an approved subdivision. And then we go into new applications, Labby subdivision and minor subdivision application. Terrapin Landscapes, a pre-application plenary site plan review. Then we have discussion on land use ordinance amendments. The first item on the land use ordinance amendments, request to add age-restricted residents to the list of conditional uses in the B1 has been pulled because the applicant found out that he can do that in the B1, in the BI, so he doesn't need to ask us to change the requirements within the district. Item number 2, a discussion of land use ordinance 511, noise ordinance. Item 3, a discussion of listing accessory apartments in residential district regulations. Item 4, discussion of conditional use standards for medical marijuana facilities. And then any other business, and then we will go home. Hopefully we'll get out soon.
I'll move we approve with that, the removal of that one item.
Second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Public comment. This is the time, if you are a member of the public, obviously you are. If you live in the town of Arundel and you have comments that you want to make about non-item agendas, now is the time to bring that forth, and we can get that added to an agenda at some point in the future. And hearing none, we will close the public comment section. Approval of the minutes for August 22nd, 2019.
I'll move to approve as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve as written. Any discussion?
I just signed them
Hearing none, all those in favor?
all.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It is unanimous. At this point, at 7:03, I will open the public hearing. Citizen petition to amend Arundel Land Use Ordinance, a proposed amendment to the Land Use Ordinance, section 9333, pet daycare facilities, to delete subsection 9333(3)K, a prohibition on caging dogs and the requirement to isolate aggressive animals, and the addition of section 9333(3)R, permitting pet daycare facilities to operate without in-facility plumbing or bathroom facilities. Oh, there you are. You're up. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Through the chair, it's not really the applicant's.
I'm sorry.
Questions about the proposed changes to the ordinance. Any comments?
Any comments on the proposed changes to the ordinance that people would like to make? State your name, please.
I'm sorry, my name is Chip Bassett, 235 River Road. What is the current requirement regarding plumbing and washroom facilities for a pet daycare center?
Did you know that right off the top there?
No, there are no specific ones.
There aren't any at the moment.
There's just a requirement in conditional use that you have adequate water supply and plumbing for the facility use.
I'm sorry, I don't follow.
It's a conditional, there's general conditional use that you have adequate plumbing and water supply for the proposed use.
And the facility currently has no, water supply for the proposed use.
That's the proposed, the
And the
proposal.
proposed amendment would eliminate that requirement completely. Any other comments? Any other questions? Hearing none, I have a letter that we have been asked to read into the record. I am unable to attend this evening's public hearing as I have a conflict. However, I wanted to provide for the record my objection to the proposed changes to the land use ordinance specific to elimination of the caging of dogs verbiage and the isolation of aggressive dogs, and my more strenuous objection to the change that exempts a pet daycare facility from needing to install indoor plumbing. I have reviewed the planning board meeting recordings which covered these issues in depth, so I realize I am wading into a subject of which there has been much heated debate. I am a longtime dog owner, 24 plus years. I'm also a many-year volunteer at AWS in Kennebunk, working on obedience training with shelter dogs, as well as a former board member for lab rescue, fostering dogs, and conducting evaluations. I currently own 3 large breed dogs. 2 of my 3 have been daycare dogs their entire lives. They are now 10 and 12 respectively. The third is a late in his life acquisition, so daycare was not part of his routine. The 2 who attended daycare went multiple times per week to the same facility in Saco, Paws and Around, run by Jean Labonte. I make mention of this as I've heard her name quoted by the Rontu's Run applicant. Please let me be very clear on this next part. From what I understand, the plans for Rontu's Run to be and the facility that Jean ran, the differences are night and day. Jean had a very large facility with a staff that had been expanded and developed on over the course of many years. It contained a kitchen area, a bathroom, and 1, if not more, washers and dryers. It was immaculate with no discernible pet odor. Each evening when I picked my dogs up, the staff would be mopping and cleaning running loads of laundry and washing the bowls. Running water, not provided by a hose from another building, is essential to maintaining a sanitary and comfortable environment for the dogs. Water bowls get kicked over, dogs urinate and defecate indoors, and once one has, they all want to. Food gets spilled, etc., etc. To need to leave the facility to access a hose or possibly turn on, turn off, or adjust the temperature of the water, thereby leaving the animals unattended, especially if they are in a playtime, not in cages or crates, is an unacceptable situation and one that will lead to trouble. Play groups need to be continually monitored for signs of pack mentality or discomfort by any dog. They cannot be left while someone leaves premises to access water or use a bathroom. Any daycare that does not have 100% attention on the dogs is not one that I would leave my dogs at. Further, while I know there was a great deal of back and forth on a cage versus a crate, call it whatever you want, a place to appropriately contain each dog separately provides respite from the multiple high dog stimuli environment. My preference would be the plastic style that one sees for flying dogs on planes. The Very Kennel is a common brand. The solid sides create a dense atmosphere, keeping the dogs safe and allowing them to de-escalate from the playgroup setting. I can't tell from the proposed change whether it's being considered that this requirement be removed altogether or if the style of enclosure is still up for debate. To my knowledge, having access to individual enclosures is the industry norm in pet daycare facilities. Certainly Jean and her business had an abundant supply of crates, as well as small subdivided rooms where dogs could gain respite. The facility I use now, Happy Tails in Portland, has options. Little shed-like houses, Very Kennels, and more traditional kennel rooms like one would see at a shelter. They match the dog to the situation where they are most comfortable. I do not believe the full wire cage, no solid walls, would provide the same type of respite environment, and I would encourage the board to not see that as viable. Lastly, no aggressive dogs should be in a daycare setting. Temperament testing and suitability to a daycare environment must be assessed at the time of enrollment at a daycare facility. A knowledgeable individual, preferably a CPDT credentialed or safer experienced person, should be conducting assessments prior to allowing a dog to become a client. Certainly instances occur where aggressive behavior is displayed even among the most placid of dogs. At that point, a solid crate or preferably a separate place is necessary to de-escalate the situation. I respectfully ask my comments be submitted into the public record for review by the planning board and the board of selectmen, and I apologize that I cannot be there in person to present them. Thank you, Stacy Guile. If there are no other comments, I will close the public hearing at 7:11.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am, public comment.
Well, I don't know who this person is.
They sent us a
Yeah,
letter. and asked us
I
to
don't know
read
who
it.
it is, they haven't seen what I have. Jean Labonte, yes, she wrote a letter, she came up and saw what I have, she thought it was fine, okay? I am not asking to run, what she had, a 60-plus dog facility. I can have 10 dogs, it's like an in-home facility, okay? Water is accessible, no, it's not in the building, okay? How many of you have dogs? The board. So, you get down on a weekend playing with your dog and whatever, you know, when do you go hose down your living room? You know, I'm not boarding, I'm not a daycare, I mean, I am a daycare, I'm not, I don't understand why this is such an issue. And as far as aggressive dogs, I just got my release form done, I would like to read it to you.
It's not necessary for a public hearing, you can submit it when you submit your application.
Well, maybe people here would like to hear it. I won't go over the vaccinations that they need to have. Clients also recognize that there is an inherent risk of injury in any environment associated with group socialization and daycare environments. Client also recognizes that such risks includes without limitation injuries or illnesses resulting from fights, rough play, and contagious diseases. In bold, aggressive dogs will not be accepted into daycare.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing at 7:13. The next item is a referral to the Board of Selectmen. A citizen petition to amend the Arundel Land Use Ordinance. Proposed amendment to Land Use Ordinance, Section 9333, pet daycare facilities, to delete the subsection of 93333K, a prohibition on caging dogs and the requirement to isolate aggressive animals, and the addition of Section 93333R, permitting pet daycare facilities to operate without in-facility plumbing or bathroom facilities. Gentlemen, I need a motion to forward this to the Board of Selectmen.
Through the chair,
We have no need for discussion,
through the chair, through the chair,
okay?
so that the public knows when the special town meeting is, that's all I'm.
The special town meeting, I believe, is set for September 23rd. That is, not this coming Monday, but the Monday after. And I believe it's in this room,
What night of the week is that?
Monday. It's a Monday
Same night
night.
as the selectmen's.
Is there anything else on?
I don't know, I haven't seen the warrant yet. They're gonna do the warrant, they're gonna complete the warrant until this public hearing is completed as required by law.
That's all I had, so that the public knows.
We need to send this to the Board of Selectmen. Just so the public is aware, neither the Board of Selectmen nor the Planning Board can make any changes to this ordinance. It was sent through by signature petition, and it will be presented that way at the town meeting.
Can't send the recommendation.
Yeah. So what do you want to recommend to the Board of Selectmen?
That suggests discussion, right?
Well, the discussion is whether we recommend the selectmen put on the agenda with an approval
No.
or a disapproval by the planning
We
board,
can turn out with no comment.
or we could send no comment. But that's the amount of input that we have on it. Do we recommend it, do we not recommend it, do we say no comment?
Those are our choices, but to get there.
Yeah, to get there, you
we
need.
have to have a discussion.
We still have to,
We can, I was just,
through the
somebody needs
chair,
to make a motion,
through the chair, we have to recommend and send it to the selectmen, no matter what.
no matter what,
Right.
we have to send it to the selectmen.
Send it to the selectmen.
The question is, do we
Well,
want
first,
a recommendation?
no, first we send it to the selectmen. Then the second question is, do we have a reference to it,
I think we have a choice.
We have a recommendation one way or the other,
or none?
right?
Okay,
Yay,
we can
nay,
do,
or,
we can do it that way.
and that's why I'm saying
Okay,
it,
then I need a motion to send it to the selectmen.
you just got it.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded to send this to the selectmen.
No, to send it to the selectmen with
Or-
the, with
or
a
the-
recommendation from the board.
No.
No,
Welcome.
that's not what Marty's saying. Marty is saying that he recommends that we send this to the selectmen.
So they can put it on
Then have
the,
a discussion, one way or the other. Or are
Okay.
you saying that without any comment,
Mr. Chairman, point of order, it's going to the selectmen regardless.
regardless?
So the issue isn't whether or not the plan was forwarded to the selectmen. The issue is that it's going to the selectmen, and the issue is that the planning board usually makes a recommendation to the selectmen, or chooses not to. I mean, whether or not the planning board supports or does not support is neutral on the proposed amendment. You notice even in the town report every year, things that you approve, things that you send to selectmen are usually sent with a recommendation for approval.
correction. We don't have to put
No, you don't, no.
because we've played that with the selectmen before on some of their things, and they have not gone either way.
Right, we don't have to put a recommendation. But our
Correct.
discussion is, do we want to put a recommendation or not?
Well, rather than spin that topic around, I'll just say, I recommend we have recommend not to pass, just because of safety issues and sanitary issues, that's my point of view, I just can't see 10 dogs without
So
water.
is that the motion?
Sure.
So we have a recommendation, we have a motion that says that we recommend this not pass.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
prior motion deemed withdrawn.
Yeah, because we don't have a choice. They're gonna put it on the agenda anyway.
That was the motion to send it to them so they can put it on.
There's no
We
second.
don't, there's
you
no
don't
reason
need-
to have that motion.
Okay,
It's
I'll have
going
to
on
withdraw.
anyway.
I'll withdraw my motion then.
Okay, so now we have the motion that says that we think this should not be accepted. Any discussion?
I think Tom said it adequately.
I think, yeah,
Yeah, I haven't heard any good reason to approve it. I haven't heard, now, I certainly appreciate the applicant's point about scale, that matters, but I think even at that scale of 10 animals, it makes sense with regard to a requirement to isolate aggressive animals, and it makes sense to have water for cleaning purposes, not necessarily a bathroom facility for the attendant, but at least water for hosing down, and I just don't understand why a facility wouldn't want that, need that.
any other comments,
Yes.
Marty?
Now, according to that guideline that we have had along the way, is these, proposals against the guidelines of the, and I don't recall
Yes.
the exact AS, whatever it is.
Yes, they are. That's where we got all of the information from originally, was from the guidelines. So I'm gonna move the question along, because we literally have, we could discuss this until the cows come home. It makes no difference. What the ordinance is what's going to be on the warrant. So I don't want us spinning our wheels and spending a great deal of time discussing this. All those in favor of passing this to the selectmen with a recommendation that it not pass?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It is unanimous. Monday, the 23rd, at 7 PM in this room. The next item, pending application, specially designed stables, major conditional use application, determination of completeness. A proposal to establish a commercial equestrian center serving 16+ equines in conformance with land use ordinance section 9.3.19.2 on 43 acres of land, tax map 21, lot 1, located at 30 Equestrian Way in the R4 district. Specially Designed Stables LLC is the owner, the applicant is Amanda Boutet, and the applicant's agent is Tom Cloutier. Oh, there they are over there. So we went out and we did a site walk this evening. And I have to tell you, this place is impressive. It is truly, it's a beautiful spot. For those of you that wanted to see what the so-called Arundel,
Equestrian.
No character.
the character of Arundel, this is a place to go take a look at. Because it clearly defines the
By
agricultural,
appointment only.
cultural point of view for the town of Arundel. This place is truly
Beautiful.
impressive.
Spectacular.
Beautiful. And I'm not a horsey person.
That's what I said.
Yeah, we're in the thick of it now.
Okay, so there was a list of,
I think Pat has
It's
it,
on your
doesn't he?
application.
It's on the application, in the back.
Remember what
It's hard
we
to
said.
find this, because it
It
says
should be in the back of the application.
last week, last time.
no, it's not in here.
I don't have it either.
It's in this folder.
Oh, here it is.
I had to reread it, because I didn't even.
Yeah, because this one's Terrapin.
Mhm.
This is Labby subdivision. And this one is Raymond Acres. I didn't open the packet until I got it.
You want to use mine?
No, that's okay. There was a list of items that they asked us to
That's
waive.
this.
It's in,
It's in the original application,
Yeah.
that you're given original.
yes,
Okay. Which is with my gavel.
I think the more appropriate question we have is just what, after seeing it, what do you guys think is still, outstanding things that you would need to?
From my perspective, the only thing I saw after having looked at the facility and looked at the application and the questions that you had for waivers is better from the fire chief.
Yeah, and another thing was location of the manure,
Yep.
the pile.
And would that just be plotting that out on the
Yeah,
survey?
so
and
on,
making-
on your plan, you just mark that, just like you did with the fencing.
Mhm. And just bringing that into TAD or bringing?
Yeah, bring it into town.
because it's already in containment.
One thing that I noted that they did not provide, but I think you wanna waive the total survey.
Yes, I mean, does he think it's necessary?
No.
I think the drainage was.
Yeah.
Considering,
It's all that stuff is available, it's just figured you guys saw it.
Mhm.
Well, the point is that you're not doing any additional site work.
Yeah.
You're just changing the use from a private to a commercial facility. And so they're not proposing to make any physical changes to the site. The road actually meets the standards, because the road is.
All the roads,
all the roads, including the driveway, meets the
That's
standards.
what I'm saying.
The parking is more than adequate for the number of users. There's more than adequate grass parking for events. They've got more than the number of acres they need. You said 17, right?
43.
23?
43.
43 acres.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about the number of courses. They had 16.
16.
16 acres. Twins. And 43 acres.
You have to
I
go
mean,
see.
they're more than meeting the standards all the way around. And, so the other things they asked to waive are the location of layout of existing drainage facilities, or their location, of, all on-site soils, they have a medium intensity, actually, we have that. Site data summary, you already have done that, you don't need to waive that one. The existing zone, you have that. Site distance delineated for all driveways and street openings, they've already done that, they've gotten their approvals for both of those facilities. They got an approval from the staff review committee for equestrian way when it was designed. So that can be waived. The location of an incineration devices, it does not apply. Location and inventory of outdoor material storage, it's shown in the plan. Existing and proposed fire protection, I think that's the only thing, even though you did have a fire, you actually had a fire drill on your property.
And they were able to drain 20,000 gallons of water, which is impressive.
That was good exercise. Detail sheet, there's no changes, there's no need for that. Lighting plan, outdoor lighting plan, they showed already the existing proposed exterior lighting fixtures, no changes are proposed for that, for all those specs can be waived. They meet the specifications. So, and then if we continue down the landscape plans, they're not applicable in this situation. The building plans, the buildings are done, they've already been put up. Cost estimates, there's no improvements that are gonna be proposed. They have done the application, they've submitted their fees, they've done the abutters list, right title and interest, on soil investigation, they've asked for well, actually, that was done by Jason a long time ago. It's not necessary, because again, their HHE 200 has already been approved, they're not increasing any other uses than what they've already got. I think the issue is gonna be locating the manure pit and getting a letter from the fire chief that he can handle the situation there, especially considering that you're gonna be doing a training up there on how to evacuate the stable. I think you're probably gonna get a favorable response from the chief. I think those are the only things that we want.
Yeah, those are the only two things that I was aware of that we would need anything on.
Also, evacuate the stable, but I also try to have individual in each stall to let the animal out separately instead of,
Exterior door.
exterior door in each stable.
They have an
Each stall.
exterior,
Yes.
each stall has an
That's what I'm
exterior
saying.
door.
There's an exit, emergency.
The access, so, well thought ahead.
Everything well planned, designed, great shape, maintained, excellent.
I would say put the manure pile location on the plan, you can get a letter from the fire chief and give all of that to Tad.
So can we approve it with the condition that they get that to Tad? Since those are two, would you do it that way?
We have to have a public.
We have to
Still have to have a public
have a
hearing.
public hearing.
So you
So we
determine that
said-
complete subject to those
I think
items
that's
that
what
we
we
already
should
know.
do.
that
Yeah.
we don't have one that's fine.
I move that we determine the application complete, to go to a public hearing, subject to the two line items that we just discussed. The manure and,
Fire chief.
the fire chief signing.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to deem the application complete, subject to the manure being shown on the plan and a letter from the fire chief. Marty?
Question if I may.
Yep.
So there was three, which we normally have is 11, 12, and 13. One of them was the fire chief, I allowed that way. Do we still get the other two?
I'm not sure that the other two are necessary.
I'm just saying,
Well, no, I'm
for
not.
as we're following procedure,
I understand that, I'm simply saying, I don't think the other two are necessary. The- From the Public Works Department, the road has been it was built to proper town standards. So
I'm just saying, just for the sake of having it in there, that's all I'm saying, sir.
No, and I do understand that, I just wanna make sure everybody else understands that that's the reason I'm saying that we don't need to get that, because that has been built to the town standards that were stricter then than they are now.
Okay.
And the letter from, the last item was a letter from the contract deputy. I don't think we've ever asked anybody for a letter from the contract deputy.
No,
Yeah, not in a situation like this.
I don't even think it belongs there.
Well, I hope we're all using the same application.
Yeah, it's one size fits all.
Yep, pretty much. Any other discussion?
None.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It is unanimous. There you go. Get those two items, we'll get you on the agenda and make it official.
When do they need to have that to you?
Well, you are,
Working
it's all
tomorrow,
depending
Dad?
on what you're going to do.
Yeah, oh, really?
That would be sooner. When you're gonna schedule your next meeting, that's a topic that's coming out of other business. I can't advertise for the next meeting if we have it next week. I do not have enough time to advertise for that. So, under those
Oh, you're
circumstances.
from, okay.
um,
I think they can,
So it would
some
have
somebody's
to
from
be in
October.
October. Because it does not look like we're gonna have a quorum for the 26th.
It looks like it's gonna be October ninth,
Yeah.
10th?
There's nothing holding up from what you're already doing, so. I think
October
it's-
9th, I think is the next.
Yeah, we'll wait till then.
So, yeah, if you get,
It's the 10th.
And,
So we
Is
have
it the
to come
10th?
to another.
okay, because I'm leaving that day, so.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, you'll have
We got
to
two more.
submit those items to Tad, and then it'll
Planning
be,
board.
yeah, it'll be, public hearing, and we'll act on it right away. But everything you have looks perfect.
Okay, item number 2, Raymond Acres.
Do we need to vote on the public hearing?
Yes.
Well, you need to vote on
So
We voted on the motion to deem it complete.
Right. But we
So
need
now
to
we
do-
need a motion
To send it to the public hearing for the 9th.
Bob? Go ahead, Tom.
Make a motion, we have schedule a public hearing with the October 10th, is it?
9th, did you say?
9th?
Whatever.
10th?
10th.
Soon as possible.
First meeting of October.
Second?
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to hold a public hearing, the first planning board meeting in October. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous.
I'm just saying, here,
Yeah.
it was in the packet, guess what?
I'll be here for the
Hey,
9th.
no, we had a lot of newspapers around, it was in the packet that came. There was on these nights.
Okay.
No, coming in from Alaska.
Moving along here.
Okay, item number 2, Raymond Acres, a re-subdivision of an approved subdivision. A proposed re-subdivision of lot 5, this is 03, addition of land from tax map 30, lot 5A to create the 5th lot in the Raymond Acres subdivision at 22 Black Dog Road in the R2 and SP districts. Nicholas Raymond is the applicant and Mary Ann Raymond is the property owner. Take it away, gentlemen.
I guess that's me, Dad. We've been here before, once or twice. Last time we were here, we were trying to get a waiver for wetland delineation that didn't prevail. We met with the town council and whatnot. So we have come to an agreement to buy some additional land from our abutter, Maurice Marcel, to give us the necessary upland to make 2 acres for a building lot. So we're looking to be able to get approval that if this is signed, sealed, and delivered, that we can build a house on that lot, or Nick can build a house on that lot.
Buy the land, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Wanna get
To
ahead
pay
of
for
that.
the land, yeah.
It's moving along, it's been appraised, the banks agreed to release it, it's probably a week away from being finalized. But before we have the check off to them, we wanted to make sure that we could use the property for an improved building lot for Nick.
It's the same as it was when you released it.
Yes,
That's
right, and it's on the
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Staff finds that it does meet all of the space and bulk requirements and the net residential density requirement that the planning board imposed. So we're back to square one. I think the only other thing would be the road.
And I think at the last meeting, we did request a waiver to keep the road as it is. It's been there for 35 years, servicing our home and another home in that subdivision, so we'll be adding Nick's lot to it.
And we'd always lived there before that anyway,
Right.
so this traffic's really the same.
I think
But
the
in
two
part of
lots
the
are off of the road.
Proposed subdivision change would be to relay out the cul-de-sac, is that correct?
We're back to, as the drawing is, to go with the cul-de-sac.
With the offset cul-de-sac
Right.
instead of the
Yes,
central?
and then we're gonna transfer that land to the other guy to make his lot conforming, so it clears up that mess.
Then you'll have the driveway coming off to get into
Yes.
your
Yeah,
property.
sure, yeah.
The new road regulations allow for that, or we thought after so many, houses, you have to have a cul-de-sac, I'm not clear where.
Well, no, the new regs still, the standard for building a road has got to be, 16 feet and with 1 foot shoulders, and it's gotta have, 15 inches of, type D gravel and 2 inches of type A on top. And, so I think that the issue there is gonna be the question of, first of all, the road, the first problem is we got a cul-de-sac, but we have no cul-de-sac inside the cul-de-sac. And the second thing is, we need to turn around for our fire engines in that area. So I think, we have to take a look at the road, see if it meets that standard, our current standard. And I think we might wanna get Leon or an engineer, take a look at that road to make a determination. Second thing is we should be talking to the fire chief about that turnaround.
Okay.
Okay? So I think the first thing is to prove that the road meets the standard. Doesn't have to be in the center of the right of way. But, we just have to make sure that it's wide enough and has that type of gravel in there.
Sure.
In order, since we're upgrading, since you're adding another lot, you have to meet the current standard. Okay, so that would be the next, that's your next step.
Basically, what we're looking for is a blessing that if that is done, that it would be an approved lot before we go any further and
Yeah,
write any
you
check.
have this based on approval of the planning board, right? It's not a PNS, because I don't have a PNS on that, so if you could get me that too. Or don't you have a PNS?
Yeah, we could probably do that, but, yeah.
Yeah, purchase and sale.
Yes,
Or
for
the
Maurice, yeah,
contingency that, you know, that
Yes.
you receive a planning board approval.
Right.
Right. But, yeah, I think, Jamie, would you agree on that? Get an engineer out there?
Yeah, engineer, probably be more appropriate than a surveyor, just to,
We'd
make
probably
sure.
get Robert Sorley from Sebago Technics. to take a look. But all that being said, is there any
if the road's
Other-
fine.
right,
reason
yeah.
that we could
No
go
other
forward with
landmines.
this?
The big
No
issue,
red signs, yes.
the big issue was that not enough, land.
Right,
Yeah,
and
but
now
we're-
they
we're
would,
buying that
Now we
way.
got
That clears that.
which,
issue.
Right.
which,
Okay.
on the plan,
Yeah.
Leon has that, I think they're
Split,
buying
yeah.
1.3 acres to get
Yeah.
0.64 to make 2 acres of upland land.
And then moving the cul-de-sac is going to
So,
solve the issue with this other fellow whose
Yes.
sewer
Right, with the
system
septic
is
tank,
right in
right.
the middle of
Right.
the road.
yeah,
And also based
exactly.
on the front, it gives,
Makes the frontage issue
frontage
easier,
standard.
Right.
the hammerhead and all that.
So there shouldn't be anything that is not within their control to provide, whether whether it's a better gravel if it's necessary, or
Then you have to-
Yeah.
swing room if it's necessary, so.
Then you have to do, so it's, I think you get your engineer to also
Sure.
talk to the town fire chief.
Right.
And we'll probably all get together and involve him.
Perfect.
So, other than that, there would be no reason that he would be denied.
No, the only other thing would be a maintenance agreement, include him in the maintenance
Which
agreement.
he's gonna do because
We're
we're
gonna give him.
giving him that
so
land
he's
to
gonna enter
make him
that.
whole, so.
Okay, so
So it
he's
all
gonna
sorts
enter
out.
into the maintenance agreement,
Yeah.
you're gonna have the three houses are all gonna be on the maintenance agreement,
Yes.
right?
Perfect.
Finally, right?
Yes.
Do we need to do a sidewalk?
We've done 2 or 3 of them.
Well, I'm just thinking with the layout of the new road and with the cul-de-sac, I'm not sure if we need to go out and take a look or not.
I don't know if
Just
That was
asking.
the original one we had when we.
It's the
went
same
to-
road, it's just gonna be the cul-de-sac.
We had a site walk out there, it was, marginally attended.
Yes.
Put it that
Very
way.
marginal.
Yeah, it was back in November of last year, and I'm just questioning whether or not we wanna have another one. It's-
So I think if
I
he gets an
move
engineer
no.
to sign off and he does the gravel and all of that, I think.
And the maintenance agreement,
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, I think,
and the PS purchase and sales, so you can have that.
Right.
Get that information
So-
for.
he wants to hear you say that provided he can do that, that he's gonna be able to,
Right.
right?
So, when we get that to Chad, do we have to reschedule another meeting, or
Yes.
we do, okay?
We'll have to have another
Yeah,
meeting.
cause we have to make sure that the road needs to.
Yeah.
needs to-
Sure.
Do
You
we-
guys will get to know us much
Will we need a
more
public
than you
hearing
might.
on that one?
Yeah,
we need-
it's a re-subdivision, so we have to have.
Okay.
Alright.
So, yeah, get
Feasible
that
by the
information, we can have a meeting and
It
deem
all
it,
depends on that.
deem it all to be
And then
complete,
we'll
we'll
have
have a public
Maybe
hearing.
how quickly they can get.
So
this
maybe on the
information.
ninth, if you can get it to Chad soon enough,
Yeah.
then
What,
that
when
would
would
be the
that have
next
to be
meeting,
in
the
by?
10th, sorry.
Well, when would we have to
What they can
have it to him by?
I know.
Next
Well,
Thursday.
today's the
Well,
12th.
Next.
14 days ahead of time, so
Okay.
if you
so-
get it to them by next Thursday,
Okay.
it'll be there in plenty of time.
And that way you'll be for the 10th,
2 Thursdays.
and then,
2 Thursdays, you're right, the 24th.
Gives you much more.
Awesome.
okay.
Alright, thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you again.
Question, we don't need public hearings for this.
Yeah.
All right, then, may I suggest that if everything is presented in time to Chad, that we could turn to have the public hearing when we're having the next public hearing.
But, yeah,
You'll have enough time.
we'll see. I mean, it all depends when you guys decide you're gonna have the meeting.
Well, we said the
I'll
9th,
let you know.
No, the
Yeah,
10th.
the
the
10th.
10th, or whatever,
I'm getting everybody all goofed up, it's the 10th.
That's the time.
so that they could be on the.
Get it to me as soon as you can.
Thank you.
Thank
Next application, new applications, Labby subdivision, a minor subdivision application for proposal to subdivide 3 lots on a 5.71 acre parcel, tax map 27 lot HB located on Campground Road in the R1 district. Sean Labby is the owner and applicant, and Stephen Doe, RLS of Sebago Technics, is the applicant's agent.
How you doing again?
We're gonna write this time, didn't we?
Brought my own easel this time too.
Leave that.
So, for the record, I'm Steve Doe from Sebago Technics. Unfortunately, Sean can't make it today, he's off, his daughter's getting married this weekend, so he's, up north, so. Anyway, Sean's owned this land for, I think since 2014, purchased the land. And now he's at a point where he'd like to subdivide it, so, we've done all the engineering for it, the topography, wetlands, boundary survey. We've done the net residential calculations, we could get 4 lots on it, but to do that, we'd have to build a road, and it just didn't make economic sense to do that, so. We're really just looking to subdivide it into 3 lots. This lot and this lot will have their frontage, the full 100-foot plus on, Campground Road, and then this will be considered an estate lot. We have the 50-foot right-of-way coming back, and then the lot will be developed in the back there. What's in green is the wetland areas. What's kind of the darker green are gonna be wetland fill areas. So there's a gully that comes through the site through here, and starting about right here, this actually turns into a stream. It's not mapped on your maps, but it meets the definition of a stream, so. In this location, we have a 50-foot town setback, but there's also a 75-foot DEP setback on that, so that's shown wrapping around that stream. Anyway, getting back here, this fill is to cross that gully to get to this buildable area here. We're showing, potential house sites on that, that's what's in the orange. Driveways would be the gray. Each lot has its own septic system. There's one here, one identified here, and one identified here. We also have well locations shown, based on 100-foot separation from the septic fields. We did provide a nitrate study to show that we don't exceed the nitrate levels over the property line. Other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward, and be happy to answer any questions.
Which one of those is where the work was started?
Good point. What my understanding is, and I talked to Sean about this, and he's got his hand slapped already.
I heard, I'm just curious as to which one it was.
So what he's done is he's flagged up this area, he's kind of cleared in this area. If you've driven by the site, he's kind of cleared in here, kind of knowing where these building sites are gonna be, and I believe he's put in one, or I'm thinking this curb cut. It was very, if you're familiar with that road, it's a very dangerous section, there's no shoulders to get off, even if you're just trying to visit the site, it's not a very safe spot, so. They got in there and they started clearing it, and then they put this in just recently, so you actually have a place to get off the road, so if you do the site walk, there's a place to get off the road, you can actually park on the site, to walk around. If you've seen it, there's some logs on the site still and some brush, he's gonna clear all that away, he's stopping any further work, and then he's gonna put some erosion control, berming around that. He hasn't stumped anything, so there's really no soil disturbance, but he's still gonna, put some erosion control mixing on the site.
Do you have any questions for the applicant?
That's where the little roller's sitting?
Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking, I was getting it confused, campground and campground, man, so now it just made sense. You pass it, come to town.
There were no rare botanical features for you.
There's nothing out there.
At least it's not mosquito time.
There are ticks out there.
Didn't say that, I said mosquitoes, we played sidewalk where it was unbearable.
Can you tell me what the proposed site distance is? It says that it meets the 35 miles an hour, but people don't drive at 35 miles.
They don't, I've noted on the plan, at each driveway, so it's, I think the smallest one, the shortest one is this one here, looking 420 feet that direction, and that's roughly coming up to the top of the hill there. I think it's when you're actually looking at, kind of across this direction. All the other ones are in excess of a 500. This one here is like 730 that way, 645 that way, this one's 710 that way, 6.
Okay.
So they're above the minimum.
If I may, Jay,
Yes.
so as far as the clearing, do want to point out your exhibit 11, Houston narrative says.
Right.
So that's gonna have to be edited.
An error, yes. I think he started right after I filed this application, is what he did.
I think it did. So, Steve, do we have cuts into the DEP and buffer as a result?
You might. This location right here,
Yeah.
let me check on that.
I think he's outside of the town, but I'm not sure about
Yeah.
the DEP.
So we'll need to schedule a site walk. Do that, when's our next meeting? We won't be.
The
It's gonna be
tenth.
getting dark.
Let's go again, we're sure it's not the ninth.
Yeah.
So we won't be meeting through the rest of this month.
We might,
Good.
that's a discussion that we have to
If we
have.
have a quorum,
At the next meeting.
Yeah, the next meeting that needs to
Would
be
be the
discussed when
19th,
we- when we
if
finish
that
up the
works.
rest of this.
So this, good chance we won't have a quorum to do a sidewalk,
No. 19th,
19.
not the
We
24th.
could, we
What's
could
today?
do it.
Today's the
Oh,
19th.
so to add
Let's
another,
do a quorum on the 19th.
so should we decide that now? Cause if you have to do a sidewalk, it's either wait till October 10th,
Or schedule it for the next meeting.
Which will get me dark by then.
whichever it is, and then you notify him.
So if we schedule a meeting for 6 P M.
But it might be,
Sidewalk.
will it be dark by then?
3 weeks?
No, yeah. I mean, what I'm saying is if we do it the
If
19th,
if we do it next Thursday,
yes.
that would be a doable situation.
I can't do it next, I won't be here next
Same.
Thursday.
That's the week we're having difficulty with numbers.
No,
Right.
24th.
The 26th is the week we're having difficulty.
Oh, you're right.
So
you're right.
the 19th, I'm around.
I'm game.
Me too.
Should be around.
Yeah, I'm okay.
So let's,
So, make a motion, we schedule the site walk for at 6 o'clock prior to the next planning board meeting.
okay,
Which will be the 19th.
we'll have to, we'll find out, it'll either be the 19th or the 26th, we'll find out.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded for a site walk at 6 P M before the next planning board meeting. Any other
Also-
discussion?
Yes. Will he have it staked out?
Yes.
What do you want staked, the property pins, the property lines?
Well, like where
Well,
the driveways are gonna be?
Where the driveways are gonna be, if you can stake out roughly where the houses are gonna be, that would come in handy. Give us
Let's
an
see,
idea.
I don't think we have to go into the back 40 to the swamp.
No, maybe the two in the front.
Okay,
Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm gonna miss this one.
Depends, you're gonna be on next week.
Well, I won't be here, no, the 19th I won't be here.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
in
because I knew you
Boston.
weren't around on the 26th.
Right, and then I'm in California.
so you're not gonna walk back here? Is that-
No, not in the swamp.
I would, too.
Yeah, it's not really, it's not a swamp.
It's not.
I would like to say we would,
Yeah, we will.
it's just a straight shot, so
Yeah,
you just
it's-
have,
Yeah.
You can cross this bridge,
Yeah,
it's not,
If you could do it,
What's the depth of the lot,
Are you
Steve?
gonna have to pay for, any of the wetland fill? DEP.
pay for it?
Yeah, DEP making you pay for it?
No,
Okay.
yeah.
Is it
It's under 2,300 square feet.
Oh,
So,
nothing
take driveways, take houses, and then the property, probably locate, these corners
yeah,
here.
that'd be,
Yeah.
Do you need to get out here and locate these far points, if you care about those, or? I don't.
No.
probably not.
Just probably where this.
Yeah, I would say where,
Yeah,
where it
that's true.
opens up, those two would
Okay.
probably be good.
We do have two other things that, we'll probably want, and that is, any comments from the public works director, who happens to be
It
here,
happens to be here.
and any comments from the fire chief.
There's definitely something from the fire chief, and again, as Tad said, something from Public Works Director,
Says road.
if he's got anything that he wants to add in. That's true, it is his road, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
He may have questions.
What, campground? This is his road, yeah.
It's his road. And he's there, so you can tie him down and make him answer questions. Or not.
Whatever.
Is there anything else that you gentlemen have to ask? Other comments, questions?
Make a determination after that site walk and
Yep.
and completeness.
Yep.
Right now, the application is complete. Given all the information is there for you to make a decision as to what you're gonna do after the site.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
Have a good day. Next item, Terrapin Landscapes, pre-application plenary site plan review, a proposal to repurpose the former The Garage vehicle repair shop located at 1544 Portland Road on a 12-acre parcel, tax map 29, lot 19, in the DB1 and DB2 districts for a combination landscape display and contractor yard to business. Peter and Jean Chase are the property owners. Mike Corsi is the applicant, and Stephen Doe, RLS of Sebago Technics, is the applicant's agent.
Back again.
Wow, they did that really well, I didn't even see
Now,
it.
you didn't stutter.
Prestidigitation.
Yeah, again, for the record, Steve Doe, also with me tonight is Mike Corsi, the owner of Terrapin
Whiteland Landscaping. So I'll go through it, and if you have any questions, or if Mike wants to elaborate on it, he's here to do that. So, this is a 12-acre parcel. I don't know if you're all familiar with where the garage is across from here.
Oh, yeah.
This is the building located right here. There's drive-in, and then it kind of wraps around the back. The front half is pink line. This is the downtown business 1, and then the rear is the downtown business 2. So Mike currently has his operation in Kennebunkport, where he runs his landscape installation business. They do a lot of stonework, really nice quality work. So he'd like to move his operation to this place. And there's several things he wants to do here. In the front of the site, there's like an office building there. And he wants to utilize that for his office, meeting clients, and may even evolve into, retail, garden center and that, but his immediate needs would be like office and meeting with clients. And then in this front yard, which is kind of the lawn area between the building and Route 1, the green area, he wants to actually create displays of the work that he does, whether it's stone walls, patios, probably working some landscaping, but have a place where he can bring clients and show them the different types of materials and work that he does or what his company does, and really make it really like a garden area up front. As that business kind of grows, and may even work into garden areas, retail sale of plants, a greenhouse, and all of that would happen pretty much in the front part of this site. As you start getting back into the site, it's pretty wooded. There's a wetland area over on this side, so you really can't visually see much farther than where the building is today, maybe the side yards. And then in the back, what I've kind of highlighted in blue is where the existing garage is, where the auto shops were. And what he'd like to do in the back part of the site is actually have his landscape construction operation going on there. He's got quite a few vehicles, trucks, some tractors. A lot of times the tractors are actually on the job site, they're not at the shop, except maybe during the wintertime. Or between jobs, they may come back, but the goal is there's a lot of bays in that garage, and is to park all his vehicles he can and fill that with his vehicles, versus having them out in the weather. I know in this particular zone, for a contractor's yard 1, you can't have any more than 4 vehicles out there. So the question is, with all the vehicles inside, plus maybe 4 outside, does that meet the intent, or does that go beyond the intent of what the use is? There is, plenty of room behind the building that he would park those, so they won't be visible from Route 1. Employees would probably park along the side here, along the wood line. Currently, his storage of materials like bark mulch, topsoil, stone and all that is in Kennebunkport. Short term is he's gonna keep that operation there. The goal, the long term would be to bring that material here, the outdoor storage of supplies, and that would happen back in here, essentially before you get to the B2 zone. He doesn't have that much in the yard. We could accommodate a new yard over here and get all those materials there. It would still be screened from Route 1, which I know is probably the biggest concern of not seeing these outdoor storage yards, and there's, heavily wooded here, and then this is heavily wooded, so, and then the building itself kind of blocks this view. And then as he expands, hopefully grows, and he gets more equipment, bigger yard, then that would expand into the DB2 zone, which allows for the outdoor storage of equipment, and then all the contractor one yard kind of stuff, so.
The other thing is, you wanna mention also where the location is, that BBD1 section is already screened from Sam's Road.
Correct, this here.
I mean, yeah,
This is pretty heavily wooded in here.
correct, but I'm just saying for the rest of the board to know, there is natural screening completely there, very dense.
This front portion here, if that becomes a garden center, we would probably wanna open that up a little bit, but again, that's kind of retail stuff you would probably wanna see in, commercial zone along the way. But anything back in here, this contractor yard would be pretty well screened from the vegetation that exists there today.
What's the status of Sam's Road Is that a private
I
road? or
believe it's a private road. This property, as far as we know, does not have rights to access that road. So anything that happens here would come through their main road there.
And there's already a road there?
It's the driveway that accesses the site. I wouldn't call it a road, but it's, you know, Mike's business would access his existing driveway.
And so would that have to be redone in order to accommodate all of his equipment that's
No,
gonna go back
No,
there?
it's a pretty substantial pavement structure there. It was used for the automobile business, so.
It's more than wide enough. It's not like a single lane driveway.
Yeah.
Without the indoor storage for the equipment, is the business currently, or could it be reasonably projected at some point to be of such a size or scale that it would be desirous to have contractor yard 2 type facility?
In this section,
No, I'm just talking about the business, without reference right now to the land itself.
I would say it would be a contractor's yard too, if you look at all the vehicles he has.
Right.
I think it's the
That's what I'm,
vehicles that.
okay, that's
yeah.
what I'm asking.
Surely
So,
vehicles
so the
too.
proximity of the zone line here seems to me would be very desirous to him because of the, you know, potential for an acquisition or a land swap or something to get into, property that would lend itself to contractor yard 2 usage.
Back here,
Correct.
absolutely, yeah.
My whole concern on this was the vehicles parked up front that are, even though they're going to be indoors. If we classify that as a contractor yard, it has to be a contractor yard 2, because he's got too many vehicles to meet the yard 1 requirement. But I was wondering more from a retail point of view, if that would work, and that's something that the board would have to look at and decide. Because if he's gonna do a gardening center up front, then he's gonna have retail there, so whether or not those vehicles were retail equipment or a contracted yard. Yard 2, he's not gonna, he doesn't qualify in that zone, and yard 1, he has too many vehicles.
Yeah, so the question is, if the vehicles are inside the building,
How would the board look at it from a retail point of view, as opposed to a yard point of view?
Now, you're saying retail, that if he turns and does the landscaping or
Correct.
show and tell.
It's my
But-
understanding he's going to be doing that anyway,
Yeah,
and he may be adding in,
But the customers would be parking, would not be parking in the garage.
Yeah.
So he would have more than enough room to put his,
okay.
Just to clarify, I don't do retail right now. It was an idea to add to the business later on.
future.
yeah,
There won't be a retail facility there now, and I would assume that if I wanted to start doing retail, that I would have to come back to planning board for help.
So
But I'm not asking to be retail right
Okay.
now.
Well, no, I just wasn't sure
Yeah.
how that was
So,
gonna
so,
work.
Rich, why wouldn't this fall under the business/commercial services?
Yeah.
It could very easily, that's,
And then the storage of everything be almost like an accessory use? Instead of, you know,
Contract.
my take on the contractor yards is that's somebody that doesn't have an established, it's like a at your home type of setting where you've started to run a business out of your home and it's grown to a point where you need to call it something different.
Mhm.
Whereas this is, you know, a bona fide business, zone for business, a business in the zoning that, you know, may be appropriate for it. Why would you have to play everything with a contractor yard 1 versus 2? Why wouldn't the storage of equipment be an accessory use to the permitted business use?
so that's where I was going from the retail point of view.
Right.
Because it would be accessory, but that just shows that it's much better to bring this out and have a discussion about it, because I hadn't thought about it from your point, but I think you've got a valid point.
You know, everybody's telling everybody to move up to the business district, well, he is.
Well, but then at least it gives him flexibility if he knows that he wants to expand into that you're not precluded from doing it.
Yeah,
So, under that definition, as opposed to a contractor 2-year.
That's true, yeah.
And you already have a DB2 lot, so that enables you to park more equipment, right? So, for me aesthetically, I think it's really important that you make this whole area that's visible from Portland Road, obviously a showplace for you, but also visually attractive and, you know, augments the look of Portland Road as you go up. I mean, it's getting better just in the year and a half
Yeah.
that I've been here. You can see a difference, and I
well,
think
the idea is to make it a showpiece.
Right, and I
Because
think-
right now, when I wanna show a prospective client some work, I have to get permission from a previous client to take them on their property. Doesn't always work out that way, so. it'd be
At
nice
least
to-
you got a place for show and
So
tell.
this
Right.
kind of thing, I think, is really very beneficial.
Well, I think,
To the
going
development of Portland.
around Jamie's aspect of it would work out quite well.
Yes,
And it would make it a lot easier. It would almost preclude having to come back if you wanna open up for DB2 and do stuff, because it's all going to be part of the same business plan.
So what is, I just wanna be clear, what you're saying is if it was more of a retail place that can include,
What was it Jamie said?
Well, it's a morph. I mean, the problem, and Jimmy's picked up on this, I'm glad you guys have picked up on this. What this is this isn't, as Jamie says, this isn't your typical contractor yard. I'm leaving my equipment here, I do my books inside, but I take my equipment in and out, I have equipment, you know, I have all my materials here, and I hide it all behind the fence. This is actually a business service and office with outdoor storage. It's a display area, it's a sales area. It's more than a typical yard. It's a place of business, a place of not necessarily retail, but of commercial services being provided with associated equipment with it. So yeah, does it meet all the standards of a contractor 2-yard? Yeah, it does. But all of the detriments of a contractor 2-yard that you were referring to, the size of the equipment, where it is it visible, is it causing a nuisance to neighbors and so forth, they're indoors. So the question is,
Well, and even
this
if,
is a hybrid.
even if
So how
some
do we
are,
deal with this hybrid?
even if some are outdoors, it's in a
Yes.
business
It's in a
setting.
business zone.
It's not like, most contractor yards that are in a residential setting that we're trying to sort of walk that line between allowing a business to grow and sort of develop organically in a residential area as a, you know, home occupation type thing. This is right there, Route 1, I mean, business zone, you know.
And I think when the board came up with a contractor 1 and contractor 2, and looked at what fits in
Right.
this business zone, whereas
Right.
business zone, what you guys were trying to do was make sure that you had something visually would fit with the kind of businesses that you wanna see in the DB1. And you have the heavier stuff in the back. So you present a good image from Portland Road for the town and for other businesses, while still putting, you know, all the material in the back. And this is what makes this different than just your
Right.
typical contractor yard, because there is a presentation element to this, and frankly speaking, having that kind of, operation up front would enhance that district. And I mentioned to Steve, it's like Swenson Granite, if you go over this Swenson Granite on 302 in
Right.
Westbrook. It's all display out there. Yes, they actually do have piles of cobblestones you can pick, and you can go in the back and pick out your, whatever large pieces you want, but there is a display there. And they are selling material, and they're installing, and their equipment's all in the back, but it's a retail presentation up front, which is what I believe Mike is really looking to do.
Well, so that becomes your future blueprint, but at least it's discussed now, so as it develops, you already know that it's blessed, so to speak, so you don't have to keep coming back.
no, I have to be the devil's advocate.
You don't have to,
Anyway,
go ahead.
is it, you have to call a duck, I don't know if this is a duck or a cow, I think it's great, but the only way, like, at first, would we have to require that you're doing that display up front? Otherwise, if it wasn't there, you have your jobs you have to keep on working towards, you will be treating it like a contractor yard. Unless there were displays that were not only just looking nice, but also attracting, I assume you wanna attract the public in. Would you have a shop there that people could pull off Route 1 and keep nice
Well,
stone fence?
my long-term goal is for it to be like a landscape design center.
Okay,
So
good.
people who are looking for ideas for landscaping can go and see it in person, and then we have an office inside, we have a designer on staff, we can, you know.
So here's what I think we have to be careful of, and I trust you do a great job, but what if we we approve of this to set up and we're gonna do it, and then he never gets to putting those displays up, and he's just doing this landscaping?
Well, like you said, we could make it a condition.
That
Which is
this,
kind of-
that this corner is actually developed as a display,
Into a display
a
area.
display area.
Could
Well,
not
wouldn't
be,
it
can't
be-
be storage of stone, or
Right.
whatever, can't be storage.
Didn't we simply just prohibit the use of the
The front?
plot, the front, in any respect as a contractor to yard?
And
That-
the
That
fact is,
could do it,
but the
then it would
fact
take
is,
enforcement, it'd have to be.
But then he
someone-
could still store equipment up there
No.
without,
turn out,
as a
the
contractor
fact
one
is
yard.
where it's
Contractor
sitting
one
now.
yard.
Right, but there's still some equipment in a contractor one yard.
You could have 4 vehicles.
He
Yeah.
violates contractor one
He
with
can't,
the 4 vehicles, he can't do
he
it.
can't do
Well,
that.
all I'm saying is I understand what Tom is saying, we wanna keep this as a visually appealing, aspect of Portland Road as you go north and south. And so, all of a sudden, if he doesn't get to develop all of his displays and he starts, and the equipment starts, even if it's enough for a contractor one yard, it kind of, you know, spoils what we were hoping to get on this corner as a visual addition, you know, aesthetic addition to Portland Road.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's why I think from Tom's point of
so I
view,
think Tom's right.
making this a condition of approval
Right.
would solve that issue.
And I don't know how we can require you to do nice looking stonework up front, but,
He does.
and I know you will, but it's more of that you prohibited from storing stuff
Storing
and
stuff.
and parking the vehicles out front.
Well, yeah, that's, I mean, I think.
First of all, the vehicles are gonna be gone for most of the time, they're out, in the morning, the trucks, everything leaves
Yeah.
and comes back and gets put away, so, there's other restrictions for me in the front of the building there for access because of the septic system, so.
Yeah,
It's
there's
not
a
like I can park-
septic's right out front here, so.
And I can't really like store piles of stone or park trucks or excavators or anything in the front of the building because of the septic, so. the
So
goal
you
is
can't
to-
drive on it anyway.
Yeah.
So I think Tom was just thinking ahead because,
But that wasn't shown the septic system was there, so I mean,
but circumstances change and either whether you keep it or somebody else and the permit to operate it. The
Yeah.
idea is that we wanna keep this corner an aesthetic addition to Portland
I'm glad
Road.
you said that, Susan, because I think that's what I was thinking, that you have your vision, we all understand, and I think it would be great, it'd be a great addition.
I
to
do
the one.
too.
But, what if, a year from now, you decide to sell it, someone else picks up and they see, oh, I can store gravel here.
no.
That, so we have to be careful that it's, the front looks like it's more retail business oriented.
Yeah.
The back-
Yes, but what they have presently, turn around, even on this corner, right there, on this side, it still has blockage for growth and everything else, so it's not interfering with Sam's Road. I mean, it's,
Well, you know.
I know the property,
Well,
I've been there, more than once.
Yeah. So,
Would the board, excuse me, sorry, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman. Would the board, benefit from making a site walk, because the site, conditions on the
I think
site
so.
are important to your consideration.
Well, I think
Yeah.
we need to do a site walk regardless.
Cause
I
it is,
think- I
it
think
is
it would
kinda
help.
unique in the way it's laid out.
So basically what Tom is saying, he wants you to do a movie set, where you've got the facade of all of these things, and behind it,
There's not.
there's nothing. I mean, that's up to you, but at least from the road,
It's not
It-
visible.
it's
from
visually
the line.
appealing.
Yeah,
So-
it's important to me that it's a beautiful place. I'm gonna
Presentable.
take
Yeah.
clients
Showtime.
there to show them what I can do.
right, but Tom's comment was not about you per se, but
Yeah.
it's about whatever happens in the future with that particular piece of property. He wants to protect this corner so that it remains a visual plus to Portland Road.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so-
right now, at that corner, okay, where the buffering is coming onto Sam's Road, you can't even see the garage.
Right, I don't have any problem with that, I'm just saying, is to maintain the visual effect of what's in front, so that it's a benefit to
If
Portland
anything,
Road.
it enhances, I think Mike would even want to enhance it.
Right, and I think he will, I mean.
As you're coming this way, you really don't even see the building.
That's what I'm
because of
saying.
it. But I think what Mike would like to do is probably even open up this corner to really see the
Yeah,
building
I
and
think
its
it's a
display.
great, I think it's a great addition. I think Tom is just, things, circumstances change, you just never know what's gonna happen, and so he just
Yeah,
wants
but
to
our
make sure
crystal
he's
ball
covered.
don't say that far.
Yeah, it does,
I just wanna see that.
yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, dumpsters, trash cans, that kind of stuff.
Negativity.
Yeah, Rich, you had.
Well, it's typical, your negativity.
No, but it's not negative, I don't think it's negative, he's just trying to have foresight in terms of, if this gentleman doesn't, stay there and somebody else wants to take over the gardening center or whatever, and you end up with 2 dumpsters and a partridge in a pear tree in the front.
Well, the dumpsters are all the way
Well,
back.
whatever, what I'm saying is, Tom's just trying to protect the visual, the view from Portland. I agree with that,
So we should schedule a site walk.
yeah.
Somebody give me an appointment for a site walk.
Yeah, we'll do it,
October
next meeting,
October 19th, right?
yes, next
We'll
meeting.
find out in a few minutes.
Well, we
That would
have,
have to be earlier.
well, we'd either have to do it earlier or do. or
We could do it on a Saturday.
No, we'll do it next meeting. I will get out early.
Okay, all right. We'll take up your offer, Marty.
5:30.
Okay, so make
And
it,
it won't take long.
make it 5:30,
We'll do
for
5:30.
Yes.
next meeting.
That would work.
That's the 10th, right?
Well,
No,
Maybe-
the 19th.
maybe the
Okay.
19th.
Yes.
It's originally
Maybe the
scheduled for the
19th, or-
26th.
right.
All right, motion, I'll make a motion,
Change it.
before the next meeting, we'll schedule a sidewalk at 5:30.
Bill, motion's been made and seconded for 5:30 before the
Who
next
seconded?
meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear him.
Any
He's
other
hiding down
discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
It is unanimous.
now,
Thank you very much.
Okay.
let's set our next meeting date.
You got two.
So have we covered everything?
We've covered everything except the land use ordinance amendments.
Excuse me.
While the applicant is still here, considering he's got both of the sidewalks that we're gonna be looking at, on the 26th, it's debatable as to whether or not we're gonna have a quorum, because 3 of us are gonna be out of town. And if one person doesn't make it, we're gonna be in trouble.
On the 19th,
So the suggestion has been made that we do it on the 19th instead of the 26th.
I will be there.
And I can be there, and you can be there,
I think I don't have any issue with being there.
okay.
So then you have
Yeah,
the forms,
sure.
right?
The only thing is, folks, that I have not had time to get all the stuff I need to do to get you your packets for the 19th, that's a week away. So you're gonna be getting really late.
So can we do it the 10th?
So
Yeah, we can.
what would
We're gonna
we,
be a week ahead.
and what would you expect to be on the agenda, Ted?
We have Oak Ridge is gonna be on the agenda.
Oak Ridge.
Yeah. Oak
The
Ridge
subdivision
Terrace,
down
the
here?
subdivision, 14 lot
Laurel
subdivision.
Lane?
Huh?
Laurel Lane?
Laurel Lane.
Off Limerick Road.
That's gonna be on the, agenda. I also have, I just got one for a private way, but I just got it today, and that's just,
That would be
that's just not enough time. The other one is, Cape Arundel Cottages, we have a subdivision revision and also a site plan request for a new pool at the existing facility.
Another
Those
big
guys
pond?
got bumped because they needed quite a time.
Another pond?
And actually, in fairness, I found out that Oak Ridge did in fact, bring their stuff in at 4:23 and apparently nobody told me that, so.
Oh, well.
I got-
Okay, so if we have those two, we can do the
And
two
then,
sidewalks
you
and
know,
review them.
then discussion. So we'll have, yeah,
The-
4
the-
items.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long the pool will take, the subdivision up on.
Depends
John's
on,
property.
it
Should
depends
be
on
pretty
who's
straightforward.
presenting it.
It's ready,
Okay,
we're ready.
so, do you wanna do the 19th?
I move yes.
Yes.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded for the next meeting to be on the 19th. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Two
opposed?
sidewalks on that.
That's two sidewalks.
We have
September.
two sidewalks on the 19th, we have the 5:30
September.
Next week.
next
Oh,
week.
wow.
Yeah.
We move
Okay.
fast.
You gotta move, you're gonna be setting stakes.
I just kept thinking October.
No, because the 26th, there's too many of us that are gonna be out of town, so we won't be having a meeting.
Okay.
And instead of pushing everything off until the 10th and making that meeting horrific, we can get some stuff accomplished.
Nice. Thank you.
So the first one will be
Okay.
at 5:30.
At 5:30,
That will be,
Across the street from Weirs.
across from Weirs on
Terrapin,
Sands
the
Road,
second one.
Right, so
is-
at 5:30 on the 19th,
5:30 on the 19th,
across from Weirs.
across from Weirs.
And you can drive in and
Then we
look
go
at
to
it
campground
yourself.
right after.
Don's over there and so are you. I mean,
I wanna be
And
there,
I will,
I
so that
wanna be
works out.
huh?
we won't be. You don't need us to.
No, I'm just saying.
If they need us, they'll let us
No, we don't need, I said you might be there, so I mean, it,
It's supposed to sell the next day,
yeah,
so we'll be cleared out.
when, tomorrow?
No, the 19th.
No, okay.
Closing on the 20th.
Next
So that
item
even
on,
works better than 19th, huh?
As long as you say yes, Marty,
Huh?
as long as you say yes.
Yes.
okay, the next item is, noise ordinance, discussion of land use ordinance 5.11. I asked Tad to get us some information from
The audiologist.
the audiologist, thank you,
Stephen Edwards.
so that we would have some information. We're gonna have to tackle that, at some point. And we should have a packet.
That was I just got materials in there, and I just handed them out tonight. Two things in there.
Understand.
One of the things that Stephen had suggested, the problems that we ran in, and we keep running into, is the issue of noise adjacent to uses and the sensitivity of uses to a new noise. Specifically, commercial and residential zone, commercial and commercial, or another type of thing like that. An industry next to a restaurant and outdoor seating, things of these nature. And it's a lot more complex, but what he gave me was, there's two documents I gave you. One was the basis, which you start looking at things from the terms of what the abutting land use is. And you have different standards based on what the abutting land use is and what the use is coming in, and the sensitivity of that land use. Also you will find also a page from Wyndham, that should be also in your packet there. The town of Wyndham has adopted some of Stevens' proposals. In fact, adopted it completely, but he still feels it's probably not sensitive enough. You'll see that if you have an abutting land use like residential, the daytime dB level goes down to 55, and there's no 15-minute grace period, there's no 1-minute grace period. 45 at night. And then if it's residential, it's in a commercial zone, it gets bumped up to 65 dB during the daytime, it goes down to 55 dB at night. So it's not necessarily the zone of the district, but what the abutting use is, whether it's pre-existing.
Okay.
And that's the issue, and it's also existing at the
That's
time
what
the
I'm
use
looking
goes in,
for.
so if you have a industrial use, let's say a commercial use that goes in, and residential forms around it, it is null and void, the concern about that DB being higher because of an encroaching residential district, or I should say lower, is not valid. The original DB level, is what sticks, so if you're in a commercial zone, or you're in an area where, you'll notice there's a classification in there for undeveloped land. That's 60 dB, that holds. So if you're an encroaching land use,
You have to, if you're going to buy a piece of property that is next to a 60 dB, you need to be aware of it.
that's right. Or if you're conversely, if you're next to a 70 dB use, and you're coming in as a residential at 55 dBs, oh well, 70 prevails in that situation.
Coming to the nuisance doctrine.
It's a nuisance.
But if the residences, for instance, are there,
It's
and
the
then
opposite.
the contractor yard expands and goes from
No.
1 to 2 or
Any
whatever,
use,
Any
not
use.
just contractor.
okay, and the noise level then is
Low.
lowered to
So
the,
who exists, is what we've always said,
Who was there first?
who is there first, but it's actually codified. It's a way of codifying it, so it's not just a moral principle, it's actually a regulatory principle. So it gives the ammunition to the pre-existing use that I can continue to be here, whether it be a commercial use or whether it be a residential use.
Personally, I like that idea, because it, in any other format, it punishes the people that are there when somebody moves in. So if you've got a residence and a business moves in next to you, well, if you set the noise level for the business, it's punishing the residents.
Mhm.
I would rather tell the person moving in, your standards, this is what they are, because you're moving into a residential neighborhood, or you're moving into a commercial neighborhood, or you're moving into any kind of a neighborhood. Whatever's going on there, when you move in, that's what applies to your standard.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's, I don't think it's fair.
Yeah, so the door swings both ways.
Yeah.
As it should. So, he says some of these levels are a little too high. And we need to get together with him and explore that. But right now, this is already codified in Wyndham and a couple other communities. And he says they work. They won't work as well as he would like to see it happen, but, I wanna see what he's done. But that proposal, as you can see, the Wyndham ordinance is very, very simple.
but it's not just about noise, it's about repetition of sound and all kinds of things.
Exactly.
So, noise has many aspects,
It has many definitions.
right?
It's really an irritation factor. is really what it boils down to. We don't have, and this is better than the state standard, which everybody else, all municipalities are based on the state noise standard, the DEP noise standard, which nobody's happy with. Doesn't work.
I think if we can review this and take a look at it and compare it to what we currently have in the ordinance, and see if we can't develop something that will fit in better than what we have.
My one thought with regard to, some of the comments is, if a business is looking to come into a business district, and they may abut a residential property, just throw out the hypothetical of on the backside of the DB2.
Yep.
And they abut a residential lot, but the residence is of some distance away. Try and think of a way to blend that into the ordinance to allow the business to come in, knowing that there's gonna be some sound attenuation to whatever the occupants, the residents or whatever, and, make some provisions accordingly.
It's a good point, and it's something that we can try to work in.
Yeah.
I think just, we need to get started on doing something and fixing the issue.
Jamie, would you put that down on your notes, what you just said, so that it will be brought?
Yeah.
I mean, someone like me, I don't get CRS.
Well,
Sounds
that's
like the kind of thing that would allow for some creative solutions,
Yeah,
not just distance, but, sound dampening
Yeah, any
measures.
number of things,
Yeah,
rather than just carte blanche.
Attenuation can be structural.
Right.
Okay.
so that was that.
Next on the agenda.
The next item is a discussion of listing accessory apartments in residential district regulations.
Yes, the code enforcement officer asked me this. Because, this is kind of an odd situation. Remember that when we changed our format, from the old system to the new LUO format, which was district-based, we were told by certain elements in the community that don't change a thing. That don't change anything in that. Take what's there and put it in place. And we ran into that problem with contractor yards, as you recall, because contractor yards were specified in one part of the ordinance, but that was added, and those were never listed in the table. Because it was an overriding ordinance, it says this is what they're allowed to do. The same thing happened with home occupations, and actually, home occupation, the way it was written back in 2007, said, that home occupations are permitted, or not home occupation, I'm sorry, accessory dwelling units were a matter of right in residential units, in the residential, single-family homes in residential districts. Well, you remember, we had to get rid of the terms residential districts there for a while. And I would propose that we go back and reorganize things and say, the business district, BI is a business district, and for the sound issues, first of all. But also because, right now, Jim is concerned that the residential districts don't have, accessory apartments listed in the list of permitted and conditional uses. And he says he doesn't wanna run into the same problem we had with contractor yards, so we were challenged that. So his request is that we amend R 1, 2, and 3, and possibly 4, to include the age-restricted,
Accessory
focused on that in the document all day. The accessory apartment.
So I have a question, so can accessory apartments in a residential dwelling situation, can they be rented to third parties? Do they have to be attached to the house? Or are they just, cause in New Hampshire, for instance, there are very strict rules. You can have an in-law apartment, but you can't rent it. It's basically for a family member or something like that, and it has to be attached to the house, it can't be a standalone.
The one thing that we did
Building.
on accessory apartments, because originally they had to be attached, but we did end up agreeing that they could be split off, but they have to have common septic and sewer. The water and septic
But they
has
also-
to be shared with the main house.
So you have to
But there also, wasn't there a distance, 100 feet or something like
There
that?
was a distance, and of course, it's a percentage of the livable floor area of the
Yeah.
primary
Yeah, it was
structure.
restricted to,
And what you're saying, Susan, there's been a long morphism when it comes to accessory apartments. Originally, in-law apartments were exactly as you said, they had to be in the structure, there was no separate entrance, and you could not rent them. The problem was enforcement, and,
Still is.
it still is, and we did that in Westbrook, I did consulting work in Westbrook. And they actually made a requirement that when the family member moved out, you had to remove the kitchen. You can imagine how popular that was.
Well, so in
That wasn't
California,
unique to
you're only
Westbrook.
allowed
It
to have
wasn't
3
unique to
fixtures.
Westbrook, but in Westbrook, it was.
2 fixtures in the bathroom. You can have a toilet and a sink but no shower. You can have a shower and a sink but no toilet.
Right. It's absurd.
It's really kind of,
It also says you can have two kitchens in a house. If you have a split level house or something, 2 kitchens might be very reasonable, especially if you're entertaining. So it made a lot of nightmares. And this town basically said, look, Most people, many people use it as, in-law apartment or a student apartment, but we're not gonna sort of regulate who
Well,
uses it.
If the issue becomes one of saying, we need to list it in the residential zones under the conditional use,
Yeah.
fine, I don't see the problem. We
It
allow
shouldn't
them
be. It
to
shouldn't
happen, we should put them in the list of permitted uses, or conditional uses, depending on.
I don't remember why
It's a- it's a
we
permitted
didn't
use.
allow it there, but we did in the other zones. We did, is it listed under R2 and R3, or is none?
No,
it's not
listed
listed
under
under
Oh, I
any.
thought
It
it
just
was
says
R1.
in,
I'm sorry.
it says
Why
the
did I think
performance
that?
standards are permitted use in all.
Okay, all of them, all right.
So
You just
I
have
think
to
we
provide
should just
code
add that
enforcement
into
officer
the,
with
permitted uses in all of the zones.
The chair, question clarification. What about the R4?
Good question.
And is it a permitted use currently in the R4? And would the board intend it to be permitted or conditional use in the R4?
You don't by any chance know where that section is, do you, Ted?
Yeah, should be 9.3, probably 9.3.1. One of the first ones. Should be accessory apartments. It's a good point, Chip. I think it has been permitted in the R4 by use or by application. Not sure it necessarily. Yeah, the R4 has always been.
I don't understand what that means, Ted.
In other words, the code enforcement officer is approved in the R4.
So it's on a case-by-case
I'm
basis.
more interested in whether
Yeah.
the land use ordinance allows them, than what the code enforcement officer does.
The land use ordinance says that are permitted in all residential districts.
You don't see it in
Well, is
9.3.
R4 a residential district?
Yes,
Technically, no, it isn't. Technically, it's a mixed
Technically, it's
use
not,
district.
no,
It's a separate,
what?
it's not technically,
it's a
I
mixed.
mean, you can't build a house in R4 then.
No, it's a mixed use district, it's residential and business, so we can have, we can have a residence, we can have a house, I would probably say. But that's the way it's written, residential districts, we do not have residential districts, but we were forced to remove residential districts from the land use ordinance. That designation.
Was the intent to cover the accessory apartment as
That's what he said.
under the accessory structure
There you go.
or accessory use to a,
It's a different animal than just an accessory use, it was an apartment by right, is what it's boiled out to be. It started off as it started off as a mother-in-law apartment.
I think it's just a discussion.
I know this
That's
because
a
I wrote,
mixed use.
originally, I wrote the one for Old Orchard Beach, and this is a clone of that.
Now, here's a question. Is it considered mother-in-law use, or is it considered now children use?
It was considered family, a secondary
Family
family use.
I'm just saying, how many,
That's
It
what
was,
it was
its
originally,
name was
now it's-
mother-in-law apartment because that was the common
Or
use.
in-law
Mom's living,
apartment.
in-law apartment,
Yeah.
whatever. It was for a family member, and then, of course, we had the boomerang experience.
So I don't agree with, Rich
Here's what the,
about
here's what the ordinance
renting.
says. The owner of the principal structure must reside in the principal structure of the accessory apartment. It is permitted use in the residential districts. The number of occupants in the accessory apartment are limited to 2. The accessory apartment shall not be greater than 50% of the living area to a maximum of 800 square feet. You have to share the septic system and the well with the principal dwelling unit.
So the owner can't move to the accessory building and rent out the main building? Is that what that says?
That is what that says.
So,
The owner has
that's
to live in,
interesting.
live in the principal. So you could have an accessory apartment and rent it to a UNE student,
Right.
but you couldn't live in the accessory apartment and rent the house to a group of UNE students.
Right.
Of course, you wouldn't get any sleep if you did.
So I personally, and I'm sure this is not popular, because I know you can't police it, but if you have a situation that's particularly egregious, it can be enforced that you can't rent it. But I think it changes the complexion of a residential community if ancillary buildings are rented as opposed to used. And so I agree you can't police everybody, but there are people in situations that step over the line. I mean, it can't be done in Los Angeles, it's not done in larger cities, in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, but at least the ordinance is there that if someone is really abusing it and they're renting their property, an ancillary accessory building, and it's not permitted, at least the code enforcement officer has teeth. So personally, I don't think we should allow it to be rented. I don't think it necessarily has to be attached, but I don't think it should be rented. And if somebody does it and they rent the property to a college student or whatever they do, and they're, flying under the radar, okay. But if they're not, and I can think of one specific case in point, then at least the code enforcement officer can do something about it. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
I think that's too invasive.
I think it changes the whole complexion of a residential community if people are allowed to have extra buildings on their property and rent them.
Not in a town that is as rural as Arundel.
But it's not that, look at how it's changing. It's not that rural. There are many sections of Arundel that aren't like where we walk today. I mean, they're just not.
I would, to Marty's question, I would say that the R4 district is not, it is classified as a rural conservation district. It is not classified as residential. The ordinance, and that then becomes a big discussion, because the ordinance for accessory apartments says residential districts. R4 is the rural conservation district.
But it still applies that the owner of their house in the R4 has to live in the main house, not in the accessory building.
Yes,
Correct.
That
applies
That's it.
to all of it.
Well, I mean, based on the language of the ordinance,
Accessory
R-
apartments wouldn't be allowed.
right, that would be the only place you couldn't go into the ordinance somewhere and find that an accessory apartment isn't allowed, even though it's not it's explicitly listed under the, R 1, 2, and 3, it's referenced in the conditional use standards as being allowed in the residential zones, right?
Correct.
That's
If
what
the
he
R
asked that.
4 is not a dedicated residential zone, that would mean those accessory apartments right now aren't, don't have anywhere in the ordinance that you could point to say, look, this is allowed here.
Okay, if that's the case, then you can go live in the barn.
But that's where that whole discussion would come into play.
Right.
Chip, through the chair, I wasn't objecting in any way to allowing accessory apartments in the R4. On the contrary, I don't see any reason why R4 should be singled out as not allowing them. I just wanted to broach the subject.
But is it,
Clearly, it is unclear
it is a valid point. It
whether the
depends if-
current language applies to R4, and that should be clarified.
It depends on your perspective. I would, being the kind of person I am, I would look at this and say, no, it does not apply to R4, because R4 is not a residential district.
Question, at the same time, we were talking about merging R3 and R4 together.
No,
What-
it was R2 and R3.
Okay.
So,
Anyway,
I mean,
It-
let's
it-
move
it-
the
it-
question.
it seems
got
like
other things going
everybody's okay with, adding this into the
Into the
R1,
residential.
2, 3, and 4 districts as a permitted use.
So you changed 9.3, the residential, would say, we're permitted. Is that simple?
Yeah.
Permitted.
Well, and then you'd have to change the individual,
Yeah.
section 6.
But
Well,
with
that's
that,
what the code enforcement officer
Yeah.
wanted to do, he wanted six to reflect what this
Right.
is saying in residential.
is
And he
that,
felt very uncomfortable after the experience this board went through with contracting guys.
is that through word change only, not a public hearing, and
No,
through, and that we
it's-
can turn around and do is,
No, it's public.
it would be a public hearing.
All right.
I don't,
And it
I don't
goes to town
think,
meeting.
No,
I don't
I'm
think
just
that would be
saying,
a big problem.
because remember how we went through a change of terminology? That we did not, you know, is that not, we're just doing terminology change?
Meaning to an accessory building as opposed to an
Like
in-law
a
apartment?
clerical edit or whatever that,
Is that
We-
the change in
this is
language?
This is bigger than a clerical.
Yeah.
I
But
don't
I'm
think
just
that's
saying,
the-
using
Yeah,
R4
it's straightforward.
as residential. That's
I
what I'm
think
just
we-
saying.
I think if we're going to put it in R4, we need to do a public hearing on the
Okay.
change to R4.
All right, put that on our bucket list before
Yep.
January. Because,
And-
no, because the selectmen want everything early.
Oh, no, they want us to do the public hearings as
Yeah.
soon as we codify that ordinance. We're gonna have a public hearing on it,
Okay.
and we're gonna get it done. We're not gonna do this 15 items in a public hearing in April.
Can we move on to the next subject?
The next subject is discussion of conditional use standards for medical marijuana facilities. I have no idea.
What brought this about?
Developing situations.
Yes.
Big or small?
Could be.
Potentially huge.
Could be. Big or small, depending on what happens. What really happened in this particular situation is, I had some inquiries on, putting out, we had challenges or, made to our interpretation of what constitutes a medical marijuana caregiver facility. And, in which, there was a question that the law has changed, the state law for
Correct.
medical marijuana has changed. And the standards that are changing, they haven't all said, the rules are still being written. I went to that conference in Saco. The rules, they haven't been completely codified, but really what's happening is that no longer going, it's not gonna be based on the number of patients. It's not gonna be based on the number of plants, it's gonna be based on the basal area. So it's gonna be based, you have 500 square feet of plant coverage. And no longer is the issue of, types of, various stages of plant development. That's not what's gonna make a determination of whether it's a medical marijuana facility. There's the number of patients. And then there's a current situation which is occurring right now, where actually, people are warehousing multiples and actually building very large facilities, almost like a chicken run. And then subdividing it, and then bringing all the power and all the facilities in there, and then, creating these massive, production facilities, which is driving some towns crazy.
If you remember, we had looked at that because somebody wanted to
right.
stack trailers
Right.
to do that with, and we said no, because the ordinance doesn't allow it.
But the fact is, when we were looking at any of this, okay, everything was still wish-washy, and there was no rule or regulations or anywhere in the state on any of this stuff.
Well, there were very strong rules when it came to medical marijuana, Marty. The other stuff, you're right, on personal, on recreational, you're right, the rules were shifting like sand. But on medical marijuana, that's pretty standard, and then retail marijuana, yeah, there's 3 different varieties of marijuana. Retail marijuana came in, that was passed by a citizen referendum, and the state has finally gotten that together. They finally have done the rulemaking on that one, 2 years.
Yeah, the only reason they did that is because they turned around and put it on the sales tax.
Yeah. Well, they eliminated, yeah, the state has also decided to get all the revenue. There's no.
Yeah, 10%.
There's no local option sharing in this.
It's 10% and $1.30 a
More
pound,
than
I think
10.
it was.
It's more than 10, there's a double fee. It's like the old, with the cable company.
Yeah, but there
There's
was
a fee and then there's a fee and then there's a tax.
Well,
The state
they had a
doesn't share.
sales tax number, and then they had a gross rate tax that went with
Too
it.
bad.
And that's why a lot of
But-
communities aren't opting in.
In our ordinance for medical marijuana, when we wrote the ordinance, we were in agreement with the state of Maine, and if you could have 6 clients that you could supply. The state of Maine has since eliminated the number of clients, but our ordinance has not changed. it is stated that at the 6, and somebody inquired about that particular aspect of it.
And, I've been with our attorneys, and, we finished that today. And, we're gonna stick with our 6. Municipalities under home rule have the right to be able to put that kind of distinction in there. Don't have the right to limit the number of facilities. You know, count that you can only have 6 licenses or 20 licenses. We do have the authority to be able to place these uses in an appropriate location, which we have in a business zone. We also have the ability to define the scope of that by appropriate means. And the appropriate means that we've got right now are 6 patients, and that's not a bad.
That'll discourage, yeah,
We also have
that's to
distance.
discourage things until it's challenged.
Yeah, and then, there are some other changes. We have to make some references, we have to take out the reference to the state statute, because the state statute has changed. And, Jim's attitude about it was that this was the town's intent and the planning board's intent to make this a cottage industry, limit to 6 per property. So it would be a cottage industry, and then we overlooked it, and that was the concept. And, so our attorneys now say we should change the ordinance to eliminate the state reference to it. And, bolster it up and put a couple other conditions in there to make it what the planning board and what the townspeople had originally wanted.
If
The
you remember,
limitation on that giant warehouse production
you
facility.
remember when we did a survey, and we got back just under 50% of the people responded, and 67% of those people said, we don't want it at all, in any way, shape, or form, in the town of Berlin.
That's probably gonna change though over time,
It
don't you
might,
think?
yeah.
As the demographics change.
It might, but that's okay.
And the community always
In the
has the
future.
right to opt in.
Right.
We didn't say that this would never happen. In fact, the omitted uses phrase, which specifically calls out retail marijuana, says that it's not allowed until it is placed into the district, until it's permitted in the district. Which means that the townspeople have, at any time, they can change it, they can opt in.
Does that mean is it still allowed because it's still illegal by the federal government?
That's one I don't even wanna deal with, I
Yeah,
just.
we're not even going down that road.
Yeah, that's a big question, you know, but from our standpoint, if the state of Maine has decided that this is an activity that they're permitting, and regardless of what the state says, the town of Arundel can be dry, right now it is dry. It is dry from the standpoint of retail, marijuana. So you can't retail grow it outside of medical marijuana, you can't retail sell it, you can't do the retail testing of it, as defined in the state statute.
And you tell me one thing, they don't sell it in town.
Sell it retail, licensed and subject to the state taxes that the state of Maine has established. And the one thing that the legislature did do is they eliminated the social club. So there'll be no marijuana bars, basically. So there'll be no social clubs.
So in essence, you're asking us to remove the reference to a, now,
Yes, we need to remove
to
the
the
reference to the state law,
which has changed, right,
and eliminated the 6.
well, that's
And
pretty
change the
simple for
name of it
now.
also, because facility implies that it's a large operation. That was the argument I was getting from the attorney. Hey, it's a large operation, it says facility. A facility can be any size it wants to.
I think making that change is relatively easy.
We can do that, we can,
Is that a clerical terminology?
No.
Now, that's gonna require a public hearing and go to town meeting.
It's going to
But we
town.
can do that relatively quickly and without a great deal of angst, and we could.
And we don't have to prolong this the whole night meeting, I
Oh,
mean,
no.
No, and what I'd like to do is, if you would give me permission, I'm going to just flesh it out and give it to Erin, who's our new attorney. And she wants to work, and she's actually quite, versed in this stuff, she's been really studying it.
Aaron?
Erin Sherman is a new attorney over.
At Bergen Bergensen?
Bergen Bergensen. She also lives, she's a neighbor of yours.
Oh,
She lives in Senate Road, so she's a resident too.
Nice.
What happened to Leah? Just busy with stuff?
Well, no, Leah's overwhelmed.
So they
They
decided
need another
somebody.
land use attorney there,
Yep.
you know? So that's what she's doing. So,
I think-
she's particularly well, you know, quite frankly, Ben McCall was the real expert, over at Burton Jorgensen, and he's moved on to Jensen Bear. But, so she's replacing, Ben right now, and she's coming up to speed in land use stuff.
I think if you could put together the medical marijuana and the accessory apartments, we can get that stuff checked off the box and turn it over to the Board of Selectmen and say, here, this is ready for prime time. We've had the reviews, we've done the public hearings. The next time you decide to have a special town meeting, here you go.
She doesn't want to become council form of government.
No.
So I have a quick question, and maybe it's not appropriate for this time, but can we change the requirements or make them more specific about petitioning to change land use ordinances
Yes.
to include some level of specificity on the petitions, a window of time that people can gather signatures and things that don't leave the situation so open-ended as we just apparently experienced?
The situation, right now, the methodology that's used to do a citizen petition is actually located in the zone ordinance. And it's, and you'll find, I think it's in section 1.6
Yeah.
of the zone ordinance. So it's right in the front, and it tells you what a citizen petition is, and it is a town ordinance. Because the town clerk asked me, where do I find this in the state statute? I said, what you find in the state statute is a citizen petition on the state level, not on the local level.
But what one resident was gathering signatures on a petition that really didn't specify what the petition was all about.
There was not pre-certification of that petition, before the petition was circulated. So the town clerk did not certify that the question was appropriately worded and certified this is the question you're gonna be sending.
And yet it got certified.
Yes.
Because they met the requirement, they needed
There's
10%
no process.
of the voters in the previous gubernatorial election. They collected enough signatures.
But
But
they
they
have
could
a
have done
time,
it
they got
over,
a
but there
time
was
date.
no time frame.
There
Well,
is
that's what I'm
not.
saying.
Yes,
Not
there
anymore.
What
is.
you wanna do is mimic basically what the state of Maine does.
That's
The
right.
state of Maine, the AG office approves the language of the proposed petition. And then there's a time limit on how long you have to collect the signatures.
That's right.
And if you don't meet that time limit, then the petition fails.
Right.
Automatically. Then
I
it
would,
goes to-
I
then
would
it
like
goes
to
public.
add that.
But is that our call, or is that the selectmen?
No, that's in the
That's
zoning
in the zoning
ordinance.
ordinance, so
It
it's our
is.
call.
It's your call.
Okay.
Well,
I think
let's
we're
be
gonna
honest
have
here,
to
it's
wanna
the
make it
town's
into
call.
separate sections.
But you know, ultimately, it's the
We
townspeople.
don't wanna make it, we wanna make it two.
Because right now, it's like the wild, wild west out there with petitions. So I'm gonna go to the dump and get a petition going that we should change the petition rules. And I'll get 10%
That
of
would
the
be
electorate.
interesting.
And I might not even get it certified beforehand, no,
Yeah.
I know, now, but I think I should.
But you
Well,
should
well,
come up
my,
with a
my
language
question, my
prior to-
question on that, so,
come up with a language
okay.
prior.
Yeah.
you have a petition and you're signing it, but like it happened, okay? But who knows, or why can it not be done, this is what it is, and you change things because nobody's reading what they're signing. Why can't you change it along the way? Because you don't know what you're signing anyway.
Well, that's what I'm saying, there's like,
It's supposed to say on the petition,
I know.
on the bottom, it's supposed to say
What the
what
changes are.
the changes.
Yeah, and I believe the AG signs those. There's a
Yeah, but
seal
I'm
or
just
something
saying-
The AG identifies
so
that
I would
as
like
well.
to change it.
We've had
in
it
the
done
zoning.
before in town, and we've seen what the
Goes to the
petition
town
was.
clerk.
Okay,
correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong, Marty.
No, you're not wrong.
And it doesn't fall under the purview of the planning board? It's
No.
only through the town clerk?
It's only through the town clerk,
Okay.
Right.
and
That's the petition process.
that's the petition process.
We can change the requirements within the land use ordinance, so that if you wanna change something in the land use ordinance, we have to do A, B, and C.
I thought it was written that way.
It isn't.
Well, so maybe we should start there.
That would be the first spot that we would wanna start
Okay.
at, because it doesn't say,
Well,
Here's-
hang on,
Wait a minute.
C, item C.
Yeah, 182C. Needs to be signed by at least 10% of the registered voters, and then it's just brought to the clerk, who verifies the signatures are valid.
Right, but you could do it for a year.
there's nothing
Collect
about a
signatures
time
for a
limit.
year.
That's right.
There's nothing about a time limit, there's nothing about getting pre-certification that says, this is what people are gonna sign. When, this is what the ballot's going to say,
Okay, now,
it's not there.
because we've run this before, when does it, now, either the applicant who is presenting the petition pays for a special town meeting, or it's up to the selectmen for a special town meeting, or a regular meeting?
I believe the costs are discussed.
No, the applicant has to do
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
because in this latest situation, there was some pushback as to whether or not the applicant was responsible, and I think that person was told that
Because,
he, she
Yeah.
is.
The selectmen,
I don't know, it came out of your
board,
budget.
the planning board, or the applicant?
correct, but what I'm saying is,
is she,
No,
in the
maybe it
past-
goes to the town clerk, but
in
I
the
don't
past,
mention it, 'cause I
when we
didn't
had one of
remind
these
me, 'cause
petitions,
I wasn't gonna wait for the town
okay,
clerk.
along the way, it was voted or recommended by the town selectmen not to hold a special meeting, but wait until it went to general town meeting to submit it. And that was on the Bentley case.
Yep, but we have a different set of selectmen, and
Yeah, it says very clearly here in the ordinance, prior to a public hearing, the individuals requesting the amendment shall pay to the town clerk a fee in an amount specified by the Board of Selectmen's schedule of fees to cover the professional and advertising expenses.
Right,
that being
and
done?
that's,
I don't know, I don't think so.
I think there was some pushback about that. If I recall, a discussion about who had to pay for it, and when the applicant was told that she did, then she was upset that she had to do it again. But she also applied to change the land use ordinance
This
again.
looks like, and this is used mandatory language. If the actual costs exceed this amount, then the individual requesting the amendment shall be responsible for the balance to be paid prior to the town meeting.
Okay,
Now, what if it was paid?
well, guess what? Then it doesn't get on the agenda, is that correct?
No.
We would have
There's
to
no town
change.
meeting if it wasn't paid.
So there's no,
have to be challenged.
Town meeting, they were already having a town meeting anyway, so they,
Not by law, but somebody has to go in and say, what is this?
Somebody has
Is this
to
paid?
ask the clerk.
Yeah,
Has-
is this paid?
has-
so does it have to be a member of the planning board?
It could be
Anybody, any member of the public.
Okay,
That's why I asked her, is she the only one in that special meeting? I wondered,
as
like,
far as I know.
I never heard of anyone getting special treatment to get special,
Oh, come now. How long have you lived in this town?
well,
You mentioned the other person who gets
Yeah,
special treatment.
okay, so, and he, so I can understand his clout. I don't know what's going on with this. So I have a question, so it's gonna pass, cause there'll be more people, I don't know about that.
no, I don't think so, I hope
Well,
not.
well, there's a discussion as to why is this a good idea to do this?
You're downgrading the ordinance, what you're doing.
Well, evidently 10% of the voters thought,
Didn't know what they were signing,
signing.
because it wasn't on,
her
We don't
last
know
one, at the town meeting with 85 people, it got passed, so,
It might have
no, it's all right, I won't say anything that's negative, but.
No, I'm just wondering if I'm out
oh,
of.
he's
Is it
gonna
good-
check to see if he ran out of time.
There's a good chance this will
No,
pass,
it's them.
but we all know there's something not right about that. So, if it passes, we can't question their use of water, because.
It's not good for the town if it
No,
passes, not
Tom?
only for pet ordinances, it
But-
just degrades.
But
It-
at
it
town
degrades
meetings, never mind,
our
special,
permits.
special meetings, you get 40 people show up, they vote, and then they're gone. They show up once a year,
One item
for
votes.
that one item, they're out of there.
But in this particular
And
instance,
she's had 5, 6 people show up at every meeting, that are like town officials showing up, so I don't know, I don't
You-
see it getting
Which
voted down.
actually, it's inappropriate in a way. I mean,
I-
I guess it's
I
appropriate
agree,
if you're a
but-
friend, but it's inappropriate.
I agree, but
Again,
it's
it
good,
degrades the process.
so, if it passes, will we ever be able to fix what we see as a run? Will it be like a year from now, okay? Because I can't live with that type of.
No, but at one meeting, we had a selectman stand up and
Tell us that we have-
encourage the planning board,
Yeah,
almost to pressure the planning board to accept
yeah,
and pass the permit, because
it's
it was,
something,
it was time.
yeah.
Not because, but it was outside of the boundaries of the land use ordinance. So where is that appropriate?
Tom, you don't understand, even if this passes at town meeting, the ordinance conflicts with itself, because
know,
it says the guidelines are in there, and I'm going by the guidelines, I don't care about
Well,
this.
that's what's so
That's-
maddening
So
about this.
frustrating, 'cause
Hey,
you
hey,
just
hey,
want
hey,
it to
hey.
Be mindful of discussing the applicant, and a future application.
Yeah, that's, you're right, so,
Anyway,
The revenue that's been lost just by the delay of not just putting,
for $1,500 to be done, she could have had
guarantee
the business
one.
one.
right, I heard that too. I told you.
Now,
Oh, that's what I heard.
I
Okay,
had somebody stop
So-
me in Hannaford.
I was gonna ask Tad if there was any other business, but evidently he's gone to
that's
investigate.
driving him crazy,
For a
I
day,
think.
already.
Can you hear that noise?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time for us to go.
Just try and
no,
Well, no, not yet.
silence that
Uh,
alarm.
I asked Tad, and I don't know if he's had a chance to
Over
look at it.
anything.
Remember is it, the business guy, what's his name, Bob, whatever it is, that, where the garage was that DOT tore down?
Oh, yeah, B&B?
Yeah, there's a for sale sign on the house. I don't know if it's the house or the whole property. So I called Tad, if it's the house, I don't think he can sell it.
yes, you can, it's an individual property.
It's a
It was
single lot.
individual, it was
Single
an
lot.
individual lot,
It wasn't.
It's
Part of the lot.
It's part of the commercial lot.
Unless he
but-
subdivides it off.
but,
You can't subdivide it off. Lots of-
There's not enough land.
No,
But-
you
but-
can't
but-
split it.
but-
Well, I guess it wouldn't be a, conforming lot.
but he might be able, it doesn't say it on the corner, but it doesn't say it's to that particular lot.
It doesn't, and that's why I.
Because he
I don't
has
know what
the
it
other
is.
resident
Yeah.
down on the other side where the trailer was, that's a separate lot, and that,
Okay, when I saw it, I looked,
I thought the
it was
same
house,
thing.
'cause it's not attached to
I
the
saw
other.
it the same thing.
I don't know.
And I just
I
called
don't
Ted
think
to
he
ask him.
has,
if I hadn't heard.
because DOT is just finishing up in 111, and they still have, they're still using his land as a staging area, so.
Looks much better, I just noticed
It
it
does,
today.
it really
Yeah,
looks
it
much
does.
better.
I don't know about a green surface for us.
Yeah, that looked hideous, like a
Well,
forest
well,
green or something,
Wait a minute,
not
I think,
Kelly
I
green.
think in the context of that sidewalk, the green surface is one of the fewest, questions about the sidewalk. Namely, why does it just go around the curve of the road there?
It's the sidewalk to nowhere.
It had been
Well,
explained
no,
by
it
the
goes from
design
one side
engineer
of
that
the
it was a, it was a
No, no.
grade it was basically a grade
Yeah.
resolution.
Well, and I think too,
And
it's
it
a,
isn't.
it's a separation issue
It is a
between,
separation.
it ultimately is what it's, I think, for, to separate the, the highly impervious, lot from the road versus just this big open expanse of pavement that, DOT's trying to.
Which we
I
wouldn't
thought-
allow
I
anyway.
thought it was built by the same guy who built the bridge in Alaska. So
Yeah.
we have a bridge in Alaska that goes nowhere, and we have a sidewalk in Arundel that goes nowhere.
It connects New Road to Old Alfred Road.
Right.
How about other business, so we can get out of here?
Yeah, I have nothing else. How's that?
What, you mentioned something about a pool, now what's he wanna do?
They wanna put another pool at the clubhouse at, Cape Ron.
Where they hit another spring?
No, they actually are getting, they're getting a lot of action at the pool, and it's not big enough.
Huh?
They probably wanna have a kid's pool and an adult's pool is what's happening.
Well,
And
that's
the
another
subdivision
day.
amendment is they bought a piece of land because they had to buy a piece of land from the abutter because they had, frankly speaking, they had set a foundation too close to, and didn't make the 100-foot setbacks, they had to buy a piece of land to make that good, rather than tear out the whole foundation. So it's an amendment to the subdivision, this is minor stuff.
Those will be the two items that we're looking at next week.
Along with Oak Ridge, Oak Ridge is gonna be much more intense.
You know, maybe.
And I should tell you this, that Oak Ridge, the question that you folks had asked about that, and I don't really wanna talk too much about this, but you had asked a question about the status of that letter from the attorney. The attorney had basically stated that, it wasn't a 40-acre lot issue, although that might have come up during the conversation, I wasn't at that meeting. But the issue that did come up was that they cut out 2 lots, you may remember that, 2 oversized lots. And, he said, you can't do that, and you can cut 1, but you can't cut 2. And, the attorney said it's because I'm able to gift it. He's gonna gift 1 to his wife and 1 to his brother. Well, it turns out really what happened since as you may know, or if you don't know, when you're doing gifting, yes, once the gift is granted, you have to wait 5 years until you can sell that lot and give it to another person who's not a family member. The other issue is that you have to hold on to it for 5 years before you do the gifting. And that's in the state statute, and even though he cited the state statute, kind of didn't pick up on that, and I said, yeah, it's legal if he held it for more than 5 years, but he's only held it for 10 months, so.
Maybe he was hoping
Fix
you
it.
didn't really know the statute.
Aren't there tax implications to that
It's,
too?
he quoted the statute.
No, I'm saying
Yeah,
maybe he was
Right,
hoping you
well,
would.
Rich, you're right.
Yeah,
Yes, there are tax
there's
implications.
some serious tax implications on that one, especially if he reported it. Now he's really got a problem. Try and get that
I
money
hope
back
he
from the
did.
IRS.
Yeah, I hope he. Well, it was just recently done. I sent me the dates, they were done August 26th, so there's time, there might be time to scramble that.
Maybe,
Maybe, yeah, I think there is time.
maybe there'll be enough time to scrap.
Well, and he can still gift it and deal with the tax implications, just has to be counted as a lot in subdivision.
Right,
I mean, he can
except
still transfer it even though it's within the 5 years.
But he cannot have it as a 4-acre lot.
He can't have it as an exempt lot within the subdivision.
And nor can it
Right.
be the size it is, which is 4 acres. Because
Why
we're
can't it?
required, because it's a cluster subdivision, mandatory cluster
Oh,
subdivision.
yep.
So it's gotta be
Right.
less than the amount of, and it's kinda hanging out by itself, so
Yep.
it's not.
Now, you're talking about the lot on, next to the.
Well, I was told it was gonna be the number 2.
Right.
It's a long Skilling, but I'm told
Right,
that it might be
okay.
number 1 because they like the lot.
What about the burning of pools?
The vernal pool is actually a significant, but it's a 200-foot, a 250 square, 250 radius significant, vernal pool. So it is, it's
Not an
basically
issue?
not an ACOE vernal pool.
Okay.
So it's a 700 foot setback. So the subdivision survived that vernal pool.
Have they started on the road?
Started on it,
Remember they were gonna upgrade?
they're not gonna upgrade until they get a permit.
Right.
Well, I didn't know, I mean,
The BH2M had done some borings and found that the road actually is built well, contrary to this long folklore that there's stumps sticking out and so forth. Which was the folklore, I've heard this from residents up there. But the reality is that BH2M found that the ground was pretty solid. And what we need now is, of course, the remedy. There are areas where they have to do some remedial work, but I haven't gotten that information. Which we will need. How much are you gonna do? Right now, I wanna get, we're encouraged to give me a peer review of the drainage.
anything from EPA, DEP,
On which?
anything
I got a lot
else
of
in
stuff
town?
from both of them.
Huh?
I've gotten a lot of stuff from both of them.
No, I mean, anything else in town?
We do have a lady slipper lane, which is an upgrade, got a DEP permit for it, full got Morocco's gotten their DEP permit.
Good.
Of course, you know, we got the permit for Rumble Machine, we lost the permit, just recently. We approved last time.
I'm talking about sand and gravel.
No,
We still haven't heard anything from Maine.
I have heard from Maine, he has submitted to me a closure plan. Okay, I haven't looked at it, I just got it.
Okay.
Sure. Up the chip today.
Right, that.
If they do have to close,
The requirement of their permit was that they submit a closure plan for when they close, and they're supposed to bond that. But they had not.
It's gonna take to clean it up.
Okay.
Make sure they clean it up. But as they said, and they'll probably make this argument, the junk that you see in there is haul, we call that stock.
Right.
That's valuable material, it's not gonna be left or abandoned, it's gonna be sold.
And that's fine, they still need to give us the plan.
That's what I got, I looked at it, I looked at it.
Okay,
I move-
anything else?
no,
I'll move to adjourn.
yeah,
I'll second.
Then we're out of here at
9:15.
9:15.
all right, you can turn that up and you can,
Oh, God.
I was trying to get at.
Jamie and Jan, the site walk we went on was amazing.
What?
Yeah,
You-
I know, sorry.
You should go see it, Jamie, it's
Yep.
really pretty
It's
spectacular.
right out on
What
Trail.
property?
Rich.
I've ever seen.